It was a cold Christmas Eve in the sleepy town of Willow Hollow. Little Timmy sat at the dining table, his tongue sticking out in concentration as he furiously scribbled on his Christmas wish list. The list was impossibly long, stretching to 3 full pages. His parents had warned him weeks ago. Santa doesn't bring gifts to greedy children. But Timmy ignored them. He wanted it all, a shiny new bike, video games, the latest gadgets, and more candy than he could eat in a year. "Timmy," his mom called from the living room, "Santa's already left the North Pole. Time for bed." "Oh, just need 5 more minutes," he shouted back, refusing to let go of his pen. He had heard the stories about Santa rewarding good kids and punishing the naughty, but he didn't believe them. That night, as the clock struck midnight, Timmy fell asleep at the table. His unfinished list rested under his hand. But as the house grew silent, something strange began to happen. The list glowed faintly, and the words started shifting on the page, rearranging themselves. The paper stretched, curling like a snake, until it was impossibly long. When Timmy woke up, he was startled to see the list wasn't where he had left it. Instead, it coiled around the room like a serpent, the letters on it dark and jagged. At the very bottom of the page, in bold red ink, new words had appeared.
"You've been added to my list."
Timmy's heart raced as he heard heavy footsteps outside. The crunch of snow under boots echoed through the stillness. The sound grew louder, stopping just outside the front door. Then, a loud thud. A slow, deliberate knock.
"Ho, ho, ho!"
A voice growled from the other side. The tone wasn't merry. It was guttural and menacing. Timmy froze, his eyes wide with fear. He stumbled back, knocking over a chair. The knocking turned into pounding, each strike shaking the house. The Christmas lights flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls. Then the front door creaked open. Timmy darted up the stairs to his parents' bedroom, but the door wouldn't budge. He banged on it, screaming for help, but there was no response. It was as if the house itself had swallowed them whole.
"Timmy, Timmy!"
The voice called again, closer now. He turned and saw the silhouette of a figure standing at the base of the stairs. The shadow stretched unnaturally long, creeping up the walls. The figure wore a tattered Santa suit, its fur trim blackened and singed. Its face was hidden beneath a hood, but glowing red eyes pierced the darkness. In its skeletal hand, it held a scroll. The same list Timmy had written, now pulsing with an eerie red light.
"Greedy little Timmy," the figure snarled. "You've made my list, and now it's time to pay."
"Greedy little Timmy," the figure snarled. "You've made my list, and now it's time to pay." Outside, the creature chuckled.
"Do you think that will stop me?"
The doorknob rattled, and then the door began to bulge inward, as if the creature were pressing against it. Timmy scrambled to the window, trying to open it, but it was frozen shut. He grabbed a lamp and smashed the glass, but when he looked outside, he saw something impossible. The snow in the yard was red, shimmering like blood under the moonlight, and the street, it stretched endlessly, lined with gnarled, blackened trees hung with ornaments that glowed like fiery eyes. The pounding stopped. Silence filled the room, and for a moment, Timmy thought the creature had gone. But then, from behind him, he heard the crackle of paper. He turned slowly. The list had slithered under the door, curling toward him like a living thing. It wrapped around his ankles, pulling him to the floor. He screamed and tried to tear it, but the paper was unyielding. "Oh, give me, oh, give me." The creature's voice was right in his ear now, though the door remained closed. "The more you want, the more you give me power. Let me show you this." The list began to crawl up his body, tightening around his chest and arms. His vision blurred as the red ink on the paper burned into his skin, searing his greed into his very soul. When Timmy woke up, he was startled to see the list wasn't where he had left it. Instead, it coiled around the room like a serpent, the letters on it dark and jagged. At the very bottom of the page, in bold red ink, New words had appeared. In the distance, the figure in the tattered Santa suit stood, watching. "Welcome to the endless list," it said, its voice echoing through the frozen expanse. "Every year, another greedy soul joins my collection. Now, Timmy, you will write their names for eternity." "No," Timmy screamed. "I'll be good. I'll never be greedy again." But it was too late. The creature vanished, leaving him alone in the desolate land. His pen moved of its own accord, writing names as the list grew longer and longer. Back in the real world, Timmy's parents searched for him in vain. All they found was his wish list, now blank except for one sentence scrawled at the bottom: "You've been added to my list." Each Christmas Eve, a new name appears on the endless list. It finds the greedy, the selfish, and the ungrateful, pulling them into its icy grasp. And the figure in the tattered Santa suit grows stronger with every soul it claims. So if you're writing your Christmas wish list this year, be careful not to ask for too much. Otherwise, you might hear a knock at your door. A knock that will change your Christmas forever. Moral of the story: appreciate what you have and don't let greed consume you. Otherwise, you might end up on a list you can never escape.